Good day, Crime Talk aficionados. We have another great show for you today. First, we're starting off with Nick Reiner goes to court. We have an update on the Brown University shooter manhunt. New video shows Luigi Mangione was following the CEO of United Healthcare the day before he was fatally shot. A cheerleading coach convicted of abusing young girls. Shocking. Police officer faces some manslaughter charges in the fatal crash that killed 2 children. 2 men were sentenced for, murdering a retired police chief on their little Vegas crime spree. We've got This Day in Legal History, our quote of the day, and our dumb criminal. Let's talk about it.
All right, lawyer.
Good day, everyone. My name is Scott Reich, and this is Crime Talk. Thanks for joining us. You know the drill. Subscribe if you haven't, like if you do, leave me a comment below, hit that little bell for notifications, and I remind you to do that because sometimes, and I saw a comment yesterday where somebody said YouTube had unsubscribed me. So hit that little bell. Make sure you are subscribed to the channel. All right, and remember, you can also check us out on any of your favorite podcasting apps. Before we get to the docket, let me remind you to go to crimetalksearch.com, sign up for that background subscription service today. When you do, you'll be able to do as many background searches as your little heart desires on anyone here in the United States. You're going to get a report that is prepared while you wait. A final result is emailed to you, and you are going to find out everything about this person that you ever wanted to know, probably more than you wanted to know. You're going to find out email addresses, phone numbers. You're going to find out about property they own. Do they have liens, judgments? Do they have a criminal history? Are they on one of those, public registries you hear so much about? You probably want to find out before you bring them around the kids. Would you not? Of course you would. Listen, knowledge is power. Get the information you need to make good decisions. Go to crimetalksearch.com. You're going to be happy that you did. Also, let me remind you, we have a bunch of new merch up. Go hit the link below. Check out the new merchandise today. Listen, Christmas is almost here. You know your spouse isn't going to get it for you, so you might as well get it for yourself. A gift to you, from you, of the stuff that you really want, which is Crime Talk merch. You know you want it. Go get it. All right, let's go ahead and open the record today for December 17th, 2025. And first on the docket, that's right, Nick Reiner goes to court. You know, the son of acclaimed filmmaker Rob Reiner and photographer Michelle Singer Reiner. Well, he faces 2 counts of first-degree murder following the discovery of his parents' body in their Brentwood, California home on Saturday, December 14th. Now, the charges announced by the Los Angeles District Attorney Nathan Hochman includes special circumstances for multiple murders and the personal use of a knife as a deadly weapon. If convicted, Mr. Reiner could receive life imprisonment without the possibility of parole, and he is also eligible for the death penalty, though no decision on pursuing the death penalty has been made. And frankly, I think it would be very difficult to get the death penalty in light of the mental health issues that Mr. Reiner has. It'd be very unlikely a jury would do that. Police have emphasized that the intimate and brutal nature of the crime, noting its profound impact on the surviving family. Now, for those who aren't familiar with this case yet, Rob Reiner, he was 78. Pretty legendary figure in Hollywood, renowned for his acting role as Meathead in the sitcom All in the Family and his directorial success, including When Harry Met Sally. This is Spinal Tap and A Few Good Men. Michelle Singer, she was 68. She was an actress, photographer, and producer. And the couple married back in 1989. And like I said, they were found dead with stab wounds, also cut throats, believed to have occurred in the early morning hours of December 14th. Now, the bodies were discovered around 3:30 p.m. by the couple's daughter, Romy Reiner, who's 27, after a massage therapist arrived for a scheduled appointment, but couldn't enter the home. So Romy, who lives nearby, entered the residence and found her father's body, but initially did not notice her mother's. Paramedics informed her of the second death upon arrival. Now, sources indicate that the victims may have been asleep when attacked, with signs of rigor mortis suggesting they had been deceased for several hours. years. Now, Nick Reiner, who had intermittently resided in the family's guest house, was arrested without incident around 9:15 p.m. that day at near Exposition Park near the University of Southern California campus. Surveillance footage captured him calmly walking near a gas station close to the family's home just before midnight on December 13th. And earlier that morning at approximately 4 a.m., he checked into the Pierside Santa Monica Hotel, where staff later found blood in the shower and on the bed, with bed sheets covering the windows. Detectives are tracing his movements, including the search for a missing knife believed to be the murder weapon. Now, Nick Reiner appeared in a Los Angeles Superior Court today wearing a suicide prevention vest, shackles, and glasses, but no shirt. He waived his right to a speedy arraignment and entered no plea, with the next hearing scheduled for January 7th of next year. Now, the delay follows an initial postponement on December 16th due to medical clearance issues, and defense counsel Alan Jackson described the case as involving, quote, very complex and serious issues, end quote, that requires careful examination, urging restraint and respect for the family and the judicial process. Now, for those who don't know Alan Jackson, he is a former Los Angeles prosecutor turned defense attorney, and he's handled several high-profile cases, including getting convictions of music producer Phil Spector, and was the defense attorney for Harvey Weinstein and Kevin Spacey. Now, prosecutors have indicated they will review evidence of potential mental illness, which could influence defenses such as incompetence, for the reason to stand at trial, or obviously the not guilty by reason of insanity. Now, mental competency evaluations may proceed further in the proceedings, potentially delaying this case for weeks, if not months. Now, the district attorney Hochman stated that the family's wishes will be considered in deciding on the death penalty, though a 2019 moratorium by the California governor, Gavin Newsom, currently prevents executions pending possible changes, obviously in 2026. So what do we know about everything else? So the siblings, Jake Reiner, who's 34, and Romy Reiner, who's 28, released a statement expressing unimaginable pain over the horrific and devastating loss. And they described their parents as best friends and requested privacy, compassion, and remembrance for the couple's incredible lives and love. The statement notably omitted mentioning Nick, for obvious reasons, I'm sure. Anyway, Nick Reiner has a documented history of substance abuse, having attended rehab 17 times by the age of 22. In September of 2025, Rob Reiner told NPR that his son had been drug-free for over 6 years and was in a really good place. The pair collaborated on the 2016 film Being Charlie, based upon Nick's experience, which Rob said strengthened their bond. However, also sources are reporting ongoing concerns that with Nick described as hostile and volatile towards family members, causing years of distress, particularly for Romy. Now, we talked about this on our live last night about the movie Being Charlie. When this case broke, I hadn't heard of the movie. It was produced back in 2015, 2016. Watched it. Kind of disturbing. And it's sad, to show that somebody who had all the resources available to them, wealthy parents, they could get the best treatment, the best doctors, the best therapists, you name it. And really nothing seemed to work for this kid to keep him clean and sober. Even being homeless, getting assaulted on the streets, losing his best friend to overdoses. And yet he still continued to do this, drugs, apparently opioids and heroin were his drug of choice. So, heart goes out to him. Indeed, nobody wants to have to go through that. It's a tough addiction to break, obviously. But, you think if you had all that support that you would be able to do it, unless, of course, you really didn't want to stop doing it. But some of those photos you see with Nick Reiner, there's something in the eyes. The guy just doesn't look right. If only there had been signs, right? If only there had been signs. Like, the time that he destroyed his parents' house, or at least the guest house, by breaking everything in there. Was that a sign? Possibly. escaping from various rehabs all over the country and being homeless because he had no money to go. Makes you wonder. Anyway, on December 13th, the family attended a Christmas party hosted by Conan O'Brien, and sources indicate that Rob and Michelle brought Nick to monitor him amid recent behavioral concerns. At the event, Nick reportedly unnerved guests by repeatedly asking their names and asking if they were famous, leading to a confrontation with comedian Bill Hader. And a loud argument ensued with his parents, prompting an earlier departure from the party than they were probably planning on. Anyway, family friends noted escalating tensions and Nick's actions described as asocial and unsettling. While the deaths have elicited widespread condolences from Hollywood, Kate Hudson praised Rob as a great storyteller whose work inspired millions. Jerry Seinfeld credited Rob with influencing his career and saving Seinfeld from cancellation, calling the loss impossibly sad. Arnold Schwarzenegger hailed him as a creative genius and wonderful friend. Tributes underscore Rob's versatility in acting, producing, and directing. Obviously, a lot of people are calling this case a profound tragedy, which highlights the family's immense heartache and the challenge of prosecuting intra-family violence. This is going to be interesting. Remember, the surviving brothers and sisters are going to be who the district attorney contacts and just asks them what and how would you like this case to proceed. The question that I really want to have answered is, who is paying Alan Jackson, or is Alan Jackson interjecting this on a pro bono basis so that he can get the notoriety? I don't know. Has anybody seen any information as to who is paying this? We know Nick Reiner has no money. I'm sure he made a few bucks, but if he had it, he probably spent it. That'd be from his movie. And more than likely, I would think the family would put it in some sort of trust so that he couldn't have access to any of that money. So I'm just curious, is Alan Jackson being retained by the family or a friend? Or is he doing this pro bono for, the notoriety? If somebody knows, please let me know. I'm interested. Now, understand, I have nothing against Alan Jackson. If he's getting paid, more power to him. Everybody's entitled to a criminal defense attorney. Obviously, when you're charged with 2 counts of murder, you're entitled to counsel. You need a counsel, particularly if your client has mental health issues. They really need an attorney. So it's just my curiosity, but I think it's a question that, inquiring minds want to know. Next, an update on the Brown University shooting. So the mass shooting that occurred at the Brown University on the evening of December 13th during a final exam review session at the Barris and Hawley Engineering Building. The attacker who entered a lecture hall opened fire, resulting in 2 students being killed and 9 others injured, is still not under arrest. The shooter fled the scene immediately after the attack, and as of today, the suspect remains at large, and the investigation involves local police, state police, and the FBI. So what do we know? We know back on December 13th of 2025, that was Saturday of last week, the shooting takes place around 2 p.m. The gunman enters the building, fires on attendees, and then escapes. A shelter-in-place order is issued on the campus and surrounding areas. Police begin reviewing surveillance footage and searching the nearby neighborhoods. On December 14th, Sunday, police detain a person of interest at a Hampton Inn in Coventry, Rhode Island, approximately 20 miles from Providence, based on a lead from a Providence police officer. The FBI ultimately activates its cellular analysis survey team to assist with geolocation. And later that evening at a news conference, officials announced the release of a detained individual, stating that there is no basis to consider him involved. Oops, wrong guy. Well, Brown University cancels all remaining academic activities for the semester. And on December 15th and 16th, police release new images and video of a person of interest. The FBI shares a 6-minute video timeline detailing the suspect's movements before and after the shooting. A press briefing is held and tips from the public are, being solicited. On December 17th, obviously today, the manhunt continues with no arrests reported. Ongoing efforts focuses on canvassing for additional surveillance and analyzing tips. How did they get the wrong guy? So police initially detained a man at this hotel in Coventry, like I noted, on December 14th, more than 12 hours after the shooting, following a tip or lead from Providence police. The individual was publicly identified as the sole person of interest, with officials briefly stating that no other suspects were being sought at that time. However, during this Sunday afternoon news conference led by the Rhode Island Attorney General Peter Narana, it was announced that the man had been released after investigators determined that there was insufficient evidence linking him to the crime. Now, the investigation then shifted in a different direction, redirecting resources toward reviewing additional surveillance footage. And so a lot of people have kind of criticized what has taken place, particularly the decision to publicly release the man's full name, noting the difficulty in retracting such information and questioning the haste with that initial identification. So, as of right now, no individual has been arrested or publicly named as the perpetrator. There's some names that have been floating around out there, but we'll hold off. Anyway, the current person of interest is described as a male approximately 5'8", with a stocky build. Surveillance footage released by the FBI and the Providence police show him wearing a mask, a two-tone jacket, and carrying a bag across his body. Videos depict him casing the engineering building prior to the attack, walking along Cook Street around 2 p.m., moving toward Governor and then George Streets, where a second individual appears to follow him, and crossing Hope Street post-shooting, marking the last known sighting. What's curious is one of the videos shows the police literally down the street, and he's just kind of casually walking on by like no big deal. Anyway, obviously, the evidence suggests premeditation, you think, and familiarity with the area. So the public is urged to submit any tips. Contact the FBI or police at 401-272-3121. The FBI became involved on December 14th using their cellular analysis survey team to provide geolocation support, which is basically meaning they're out there pinging phones in the area to see if there's any people of interest that they're doing, right? First, they get the data from the cell phone towers in that vicinity. They see who's there. Then they get the geo-tracking data from everybody in the phone. Then they narrow it down and bam, they usually lead you to your suspect, unless, of course, they were smart enough not to take their phone with them. Anyway, the FBI has since contributed by releasing enhanced images, videos, and detailed timelines of the movement of the suspect, but no explicit reason for the timing of their entry approximately 24 hours after the shooting. Nobody seems to be mentioning that. However, the incident's classification as a potential mass shooting or act of domestic terrorism may have prompted, obviously, the federal authorities to get involved. Now, assessment of the investigation, kind of highlights a mix of challenges posed by the suspect's actions and potential shortcomings in law enforcement in their response. Let's face it, small town police department, right? The university police department kind of dropped the ball on this one, didn't they? Anyway, the suspect appears tricky, according to the police, in several respects. The video indicates, obviously, he was premeditated in doing the shooting by casing the area. And obviously, it shows that he's been planning to do this for some time. Now, some people critique that the possible little police incompetence, including the rapid detention and release of the wrong person, which may have stemmed from some flawed leads or insufficient verification. What can you do? Either way, the press conference that was held by the police was a mess. And let's face it, kind of a failure to provide a clear physical description of the suspect during the briefings. Didn't bode well for everybody in charge of the investigation. They all looked a little incompetent. Overall, we're going to have to wait and see. Hopefully they'll get somebody soon. Hey, after all, it took them almost a week to get Luigi Mangione, which is a great segue into our next story about Luigi Mangione. Not looking good for old Luigi. In a pretrial hearing for the high-profile murder case involving Luigi Mangione, a New York Police Department detective, testified that surveillance footage captured the suspect walking past the United Healthcare CEO Brian Thompson in a hotel lobby just 1 day prior to the executive's fatal shooting. Now, this little revelation underscores the premeditated nature of the alleged crime as prosecutors seek to establish admissible evidence for the upcoming trial. So Mangione faces charges for the December 4th, 2024 shooting of Mr. Thompson outside of a Manhattan hotel. The attack occurred as Thompson was departing the premises with shots fired into his back and leg. The ongoing pretrial proceedings aim to determine which pieces of evidence may be presented in Mangione's state murder trial amid arguments from the defense regarding illegal search and seizure of Mr. Mangione, his backpack, and all of the contents therein. Anyway, the NYPD Lieutenant David Leonardi, a 23-year veteran on the police force, provided key testimony on Tuesday regarding his involvement in the investigation. Upon arriving at the crime scene, Leonardi observed a significant accumulation of blood near the wall where Thompson had been struck. As the suspect fled toward Pennsylvania, investigators promptly reviewed local surveillance footage to identify leads. One critical video, sourced from the Hilton Hotel where Thompson was lodging, depicted Mangione passing directly by the victim in the lobby on the day preceding the incident. And although the footage was not displayed during the hearing, Leonardi's accounts align with prior statements from the Justice Department, which indicate that Mangione had arrived in New York a week earlier and conducted surveillance around the hotel and a nearby conference site where Thompson was set to appear. On the day of the shooting, police recovered a gray backpack in Central Park believed to belong to Mangione. Its contents included candy bars, assorted sweets, and imitation currency resembling Monopoly money as described by the detective. 5 days later, Mangione was apprehended at a McDonald's in Altoona, Pennsylvania, and a subsequent search of his possessions revealed a firearm equipped with a loaded magazine, a red notebook, a makeshift silencer, and substantial amounts of cash in both U.S. and foreign denominations. Well, Mangione's legal defense team has contested the inclusion of these items as evidence, asserting that the search was conducted unlawfully and that their client was not properly informed of his Miranda rights during the arrest. Now remember, they only have to be advised. The defendant only has to be advised of his Miranda rights if he's in custody and they're questioning him about the investigation that they're conducting. You don't have to be advised of your Miranda rights before you're arrested. I get this question twice a week, probably. Well, they arrested me without reading my Miranda rights. Well, did they ask you any questions? No. They arrested me and took me straight to jail. Guess what? They didn't need to read your Miranda rights. So they're actually saying, the defense is actually saying that the items were searched improperly. The government is arguing that they could search them incident to arrest, officer safety, as well as the inevitable discovery rule as well. Anyway, the judge presiding over the case will rule on the admissibility of the evidence once the proceedings conclude later this week. Normally motions hearings like these take place, I don't know, they usually take half a day, maybe a couple hours at most, not 8 days. I just don't get it. Anyway, in addition to the state charges, Mangione is slated for a separate federal murder trial. He has entered not guilty pleas on all of the accusations against him and is entitled to the presumption of innocence. And obviously, we'll bring you the updates as they become available. Next, a cheerleading coach convicted of abusing young girls. How many times have we said it, ladies and gentlemen? Be very careful that who is around your children. Most people don't want to hang out with young children unless, they got a thing for young children. Be careful. I'm telling you, as a criminal defense attorney, be careful of who is around your children. So a former cheerleading coach from California has been convicted of sexually assaulting at least 10 young girls, some as young as 9 years old, and now faces a maximum sentence of 165 years in prison. Let me introduce you to Eric Joseph Christensen, previously employed at the Magic All-Star Cheerleading Club and is assistant coach at the Trabuca Hills High School. And he was found guilty of multiple felony charges stemming from incidents in Orange County during the early 2000s. Now, the conviction stemmed from Christensen's role as a competitive cheer coach and camp counselor, where he exploited his position of authority to target vulnerable minors. Police are reporting that the assaults took place at cheerleading competitions and even at his personal residence. Christensen, who sported dreadlocks at the time of his arrest, was initially apprehended in Florida while working there, which ultimately exposed his earlier crimes in California. The Orange County District Attorney Todd Spitzler condemned Christensen's actions in a public statement, describing how this perpetrator exploited cheerleading facilities nationwide as a means to identify and victimize young girls. For years, Eric Christensen operated openly as a respected coach, relying on the silence of his young victims to continue his offenses. Individuals who prey on children persist until they are halted by law enforcement intervention, the district attorney noted. Anyway, this case surfaced back in 2022 following Christensen's arrest in Daytona Beach on charges of, wait for it, sexually abusing a 13-year-old girl and engaging in inappropriate behavior during a video call with 3 minors. At the time, he was coaching at Champion Elite Legacy, a competitive cheer program, and news of his arrest prompted a former victim from Orange County to contact police, revealing that, hey, guess what? The guy had molested her when she was just 14. She described repeated encounters where he would pick up her from school for lunch and then assault her at his home and nearby locations. Subsequent investigations revealed additional victims, including 7 girls ages 9 to 16, whom Christensen coached between 2002 and 2006. 2 more individuals reported abuse through connections via family members and during his tenure as a counselor at the South Orange County YMCA sleepaway camp. Jeez. Anyway, many of these survivors explained to investigators the feelings of shame had prevented them from reporting the incident earlier. Anyway, Christensen's legal troubles escalated across multiple states. He was first detained in Kansas in 2022 on a warrant and then was extradited to Florida, where he secured release on a $300,000 bond without any travel restrictions. The following year, he was arrested in Fargo, North Dakota on charges linked to the Orange County investigation. Anyway, the jury convicted Christensen on a total of 23 felony counts, including 11 counts of lewd acts with a minor under 14, 4 on children aged 14 or 15, 6 counts of sexual penetration by a foreign object on a minor under 18, and 2 such counts on a minor under 16. Sentencing is now scheduled for March, where the court will determine the final penalty, up to 165 years to life imprisonment. Be careful with child safety, ladies and gentlemen. Youth sports, how many stories have we brought you? If you're traveling on youth sports, be careful. Check out. You got to check them out. Check them out. People are going to be hanging out with your kids. You need to check them out. Next, a Texas police officer is charged in regards to the death of a couple of young kids. Yep. A police officer in Baytown, Texas, was formally charged with manslaughter following a high-speed collision that resulted in the deaths of 2 young boys and severe injuries to 3 others. Now, this all took place back in October of this year and has prompted an independent investigation revealing alleged violation of the department protocols. Michael Hightower, a 28-year-old police officer with 2 years of service there in Baytown, is accused of driving at excessive speed without activating his patrol vehicle's emergency lights or sirens. And according to the investigative reports, Hightower was en route to a reported disturbance involving a weapon when his cruiser struck a Honda Odyssey minivan at the intersection of Goose Creek Drive and West Baker Road in the Houston area. The minivan, carrying a woman and 5 children, was executing a left turn under a flashing yellow arrow signal at the time of the impact. Initial assessment by the Baytown police, supported by witness accounts and dashboard cam recordings, suggested that Hightower possessed the right-of-way with a green light. However, a subsequent review by external authorities determined that the officer's speed and failure to use emergency signals contributed to the tragedy. Hightower surrendered to police on Monday, facing 2 counts of manslaughter and 1 count of aggravated assault. He was subsequently released after posting a $150,000 bond, and he has an initial court appearance on January 12th of next year. The young victims, brothers Jude Russell and River Russell, succumbed to their injuries in the hospital. Their father, Clint Russell, shared that the boys passed away calmly, enveloped by family affections and care. The surviving siblings, 3 sisters aged 16, 14, and 3, sustained critical injuries and numerous broken bones, including a cerebral hemorrhage. In response to the charges, the Baytown Police Department issued a statement emphasizing their awareness of the public interest in this case and extended sympathies to those impacted. The department noted Hightower's full cooperation with the judicial proceedings and refrained from additional commentary to honor the legal process, assuring that all facts would be examined thoroughly in a court of law. Next, it's all fun and games until you kill a retired police chief on a crime spree. That's right. 2 individuals, Jesus Ayala, age 20, and Jzamir Keys, Jasmir, common spelling, age 18, received prison sentences in Clark County District Court, Nevada, following their guilty pleas to murder of Andre Prost, a 64-year-old retired police chief from California. Now, the sentencing occurred on Tuesday. Ayala was given a term of 20 years to life imprisonment under a plea agreement, while Keys received 18 years to life. Both were charged as an adult for the offense, which they committed as minors, rendering them ineligible for the death penalty under Nevada law. They will become eligible for parole after serving the minimum portions of their sentences. Now, this all took place back in August of 2023 in Northwest Las Vegas. Probst was cycling on a road with minimal traffic when he was struck from behind by a 2016 Hyundai Elantra. Video footage captured from inside the vehicle shows it approaching Probst near the curb, followed by the impact that sent him flying into the windshield. Audio from the recording includes laughter and comments prior to the collision. A subsequent image depicts Probst on the ground beside on the road. Police initially classified the event as a hit and run. However, after the video circulated widely, the Las Vegas Metropolitan Police Department upgraded the charges to include murder. Ayala was identified as the driver and Keys, the passenger who recorded the footage. The murder formed part of a broader criminal activity that morning, during which the pair allegedly stole 4 vehicles and struck a 72-year-old bicyclist who fortunately survived the incident. Now, in court, Judge Bluth noted that the actions extended beyond a simple vehicle excursion and involved increased levels of harm to others. Now, upon his arrest back in August of 2023, Ayala reportedly made statements to officers suggesting he anticipated minimal consequences due to his juvenile status at the time of the crime. And, the duo faced multiple charges, including murder, attempted murder, failure to stop at a scene, battery, and residential burglary, throwing a little grand larceny of a vehicle, and possession of a stolen car. Proceedings were delayed several months after Ayala was deemed incompetent to stand trial back in October of the previous year, and then he was transferred to a maximum security psychiatric facility for evaluation. But a judge later ruled him competent to proceed. Oh, I guess he was malingering. Anyway, Ayala also faces a separate attempted murder charge related to an alleged stabbing incident back in June of 2023, in which he is accused of injuring a man in the face. The victim identified Ayala from photo lineups, and obviously it led to his arrest in the Probst case as well. Now, the Probst family has initiated a wrongful death lawsuit against Hyundai, alleging that a flaw in the 2016 Elantra anti-theft system facilitated the vehicle's theft and subsequent use in the attack. Additionally, Probst's widow and 2 children have filed a wrongful death suit against Ayala and Keys, who, let's face it, don't have a pot to piss in. Ladies and gentlemen, I never know what to do with juvenile stuff, all right? I don't do juvenile stuff. The juvenile stuff I've done over the years was juveniles with murder cases. One just got a life sentence reduced to the minimum 40 years, which is good for him. He was a young man, made some terrible mistakes, made a bigger mistake when he fled town and, committed another murder in the state of Oregon. These things happen. I understand. But what can you do? But I'm telling you, you coddle the juveniles, man, you're just creating adult criminals. I hate to say it. You can't do it. But you go into these juvenile proceedings, and why I don't do juvenile stuff is because it's all run by a bunch of touchy-feely social workers who all think that, you know, everybody just needs a big hug and everything will be fine in the future. No, it's not. And so as a defense attorney, you show up like, I'm going to defend this case. And they're all like, we really want to get him treatment. We just want to have everybody have a big hug and it's going to be great. And we're going to do it. I'm like, no, I'm trying to win this case. And obviously it's in the best interest if everybody wants to give him a hug and he gets a pat on the wrist and, you know, move him on his way. But if there's no real consequences to it, I'm telling you, or some changes aren't actually made, usually in the home life, then, you know, you're just going to get more and more of the same. And it's always in these juvenile cases. And I hate to say it, usually somebody winds up dead. And then they all run around, all the family members run around saying, oh, poor little Johnny, he was such a good kid. Even though everybody in the courtroom knows that he had extensive criminal history, he was out doing things he shouldn't be doing in the middle of the night. And then he gets killed and everybody wants justice. And you want to look at him and all say, because I'm usually representing the guy that shot little Johnny, right? And you're wondering, where were all you people when he was running the streets in the middle of the night? You weren't around. So take it for whatever it's worth, ladies and gentlemen. Next, this day in legal history. On December 17th, 1798, the United States Senate begins its first impeachment trial of Senator William Blount of Tennessee, who was a land speculator and who was accused of plotting with England to wrestle control of Florida from Spain. The Senate ultimately dismissed the charges for lack of jurisdiction and perhaps incidentally, lack of Blount, who had gone to Tennessee and refused to return to the Senate for the trial. Next on the docket, our quote of the day. Now, a notable quote regarding the folly often exhibited by certain criminals is as follows. Most criminals are kind of dumb, which is why they're criminals. If they weren't criminals, they'd be doing something else to screw up people's lives, like, you know, running elections in Florida. Anyway, this little quote is attributed to John Connolly. It succinctly captures the irony and lack of foresight frequently associated with criminal behavior. And finally, our dumb criminal of the day. Talk about can't make this stuff up, ladies and gentlemen. In a twist that seems scripted for a crime caper gone awry, a 39-year-old woman facing federal charges for her alleged involvement in a $29 million COVID relief fraud scheme was arrested Wednesday morning after reportedly driving a stolen cargo van directly towards the courthouse where her trial was underway. Please meet Latoya Clark. She was pulled over by the St. Lucie County Sheriff's deputy just blocks from the U.S. District Court in Fort Pierce shortly after 8:30 a.m. An automated license plate reader had identified the 2025 Ram ProMaster van she was driving as stolen. When informed of the reason for the stop, Clark reportedly responded with remarkable candor. She acknowledged the vehicle status and explained that she was heading to court because she was currently on trial for a federal offense. Police determined that Clark had rented the van from a U-Haul location 2 months earlier for a single day, but never returned the van, prompting the company to report it stolen. She now faces an additional felony charge related to that vehicle theft. Now, the timing of the arrest proved particularly inconvenient, so Clark, who had been free on a $250,000 bond, failed to appear for her ongoing federal trial that morning. She and 5 co-defendants stand accused of orchestrating a sophisticated multi-year conspiracy involving 92 fraudulent applications for Paycheck Protection Program loans and grants. Prosecutors allege the group successfully obtained approximately $29 million in government funds, which were then laundered through a network of shell companies. Clark is said to have controlled 3 entities central to the operation. Anyway, the charges include conspiracy, wire fraud, and money laundering, several of which carry potential maximum sentences of up to 20 years in prison. Following the new arrest, the U.S. District Court Judge Eileen Cannon revoked Clark's bond. The defense had argued that her prolonged detention of the van stemmed from financial hardship and necessity, claiming she had been living in the vehicle. Anyway, the judge rejected this characterization, and jury selection in the COVID fraud case concluded yesterday with opening statements originally scheduled for today. However, Clark's latest legal complications had added yet another layer of the complexities to an already difficult prosecution. All right, ladies and gentlemen, that's all we have for today. I hope you enjoyed the show. Thanks for watching. We'll see you tomorrow. And remember, the Constitution matters.